Thanks for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Today, we have another Franchise Fever episode, which we haven't done for a while. I think the last one we did was Harry Potter, which was a pretty big one. Yeah. So, what is a Franchise Fever, Adrian?
Franchise Fever is kind of what it sounds like. It's where we watch an entire franchise. So we watch basically the entire series of films, and that requirement is 3 or more. So the one today barely made that.
Absolutely. And today we have one that a lot of people have requested, and one that I had never seen, which is the How to Train Your Dragon series. So all this and more.
You hadn't seen them?
No, I had not seen a single one.
Wow, that's a lot.
All of this coming up on the drive back. And with the plot twist, like saying that I hadn't seen a single one of them, we're diving straight in to How to Train Your Dragon. What's been your history with the How to Train Your Dragon films? Did you see them in theaters? Did you kind of watch them at home later?
I read the book initially.
Oh, okay.
So I had initially, read the book, and I believe there was like a board game or something, and I kind of played that. And then I definitely went to the theater to see the first film. I think I went to the theater for all of them, actually. But yeah, I mean, so I don't want to say it's like a passion thing, but I definitely was excited when they came out with films. That was a very big deal. It was like, oh, this is such a cool property. I'm so excited to see what they do. And yeah, I'm super interested though to see how how did you avoid these? I feel like they were pretty commonplace for a while.
It's just they never showed up on my radar. I had several different chances to see them and just never did.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of films we could talk about that you haven't seen, big ones. So it's kind of like
roasting you, just crazy. Yeah.
No, I know. It felt like a roast. I felt like I was on Comedy Central.
I could tell you felt like that.
But we're going to go ahead and jump into the first movie, which is How to Train Your Dragon, oddly enough. Released in 2010, it was directed by Dean DeBlois and Chris Sanders, and stars Jay Baruchel, Gerard Butler, and America Ferrera. A hapless young Viking who aspires to hunt dragons becomes the unlikely friend of a young dragon himself and learns there may be more to the creatures than he assumed. He was nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score. Which, that's one thing I do want to point out. The music across 2 of the 3 movies is very good.
Oh, I think there's literally YouTube videos that break down how the intro to this first film musically is incredible.
Yeah.
It's like basically considered one of the perfect like setup pieces to a movie ever.
It's pretty great. But let's go over the entire film itself. Having rewatched it now that you're older, wiser, been critiquing film for a little while now, what did you think?
My biggest takeaway from rewatching it, I still really enjoy the story, and the characters I think are really well fleshed out. And I think I would say 90% really well casted and all pretty likable. The only thing that I really was shaken by on my return to this is that I think the animation in this is like slightly better than Cocomelon. Like, it did not look good to me at all in this first one.
Cocomelon?
Oh, you don't know what Cocomelon is at all?
No.
Oh, well, there's a social thing you gotta look up.
All right. But yeah, I agree. The animation, it doesn't hold up. I mean, there are moments when it looks good, but for the most part, I mean, it was only, 11 years ago now? Yeah, 2010. So, like, it should...
Yeah, but I feel like you could tell that shortly after we made a big jump in quality.
Yeah. I mean, I would say...
knowledge was created. I mean, you could just tell.
I mean, even the Shrek movies, I feel like, hold up better than this one, though.
Both DreamWorks, right?
Yeah, both DreamWorks.
I mean, you could definitely tell they took a stylistic choice as well. Like you said, Shrek. Things existed that looked a certain way that were doable. And I think they went for a certain look, and it just felt dated. And they definitely touched up on it in the later films, And I mean, we could talk about that then. But yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. Was just it didn't look terrible. It just
No, yeah.
looked so old. Like you could
Yeah.
just feel the age of the film.
Yeah, it feels significantly more dated than it should, which is weird.
Yeah.
But it's also nice that you bring up stylization, because one of my biggest flaws with this movie, and really the entire franchise as a whole, is the character design. I feel like it's really inconsistent. Like, certain characters look really good and really well realized, and we're going to come to probably my first of two major controversial opinions regarding this franchise. I will go on the record right now. It's probably the most controversial thing I've said since Good Will Hunting wasn't a masterpiece film, and that is I hate the design of Toothless. I think Toothless, compared to the other dragons in the film, looks way too cartoony and cutesy, and not more grounded, at least. Grounded's kind of a weird term, but not as interesting looking as the other dragons were.
Okay.
You sound like you disagree.
I don't know if I agree or not. I do think it's a. I think I have justified it in my head that in order for a dragon to be that elusive and to never have been seen before, and to like disappear into the night, I can't imagine a dragon like that having a lot of defining features or traits. Because in all those glimpses that people would have, they would have been able to identify, oh, he's got like horns, or he's got the wingspan of an island, or like something, if it was larger or if it was more defined. Whereas the shape that it was is very ambiguous. Like that thing flying across the sky, you knew it was a dragon, but you could never describe what you saw.
I could describe what I saw. It's bland, and it is just not good. I also just don't like how they make him like a dog. Like, he's way too, like, there are moments when it's like, okay, like that's not how a dragon would act. Any of the dragons, really. And I get it's a kids movie, but
Yeah.
like, it would have been so much cooler to have more realistic, grounded dragons. And you do get some cool, like, types in this movie, like the ones that have the gas and then they spark it and it catches flame. In the third movie, we get ones that have like acid breath, which is totally like, D&D, and it's great. And I think maybe that's the issue, because I've been spoiled by D&D for years by having awesome dragons, and like, also 3 years after this, we get, The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug, and Smaug is one of the best dragons ever conceived on film. So like, maybe I've been spoiled.
Different though.
Yeah, but it's more what a dragon should be. I don't know. Again, it's a kids movie, so I can't fault it too much for going the cutesy path. It's just I don't like the way he looks. So
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I think, especially going off the fact that it's a kids movie, I think, like, even watching it now, I just found myself thinking about how freaking sweet it would be to have Toothless as a pet. And I feel like for a kid, that's what they were going for, is like, look at how cool it would be to have a dragon as a pet, like to train one and to own and to fly one. And to me, I feel like it totally embodied that. Like, it totally realized that, and I was super excited watching it and being like, man, I wish dragons were real and I could just have one.
yeah, I mean, like, if it was like a shoulder-mounted one, that'd be cool. Like a smaller little pseudo dragon, cool with those, or like a bigger one. I don't know, man. I can't get over the way Toothless looks.
Fair enough.
But let's go ahead and move on to some good things. For the most part, the cast in this movie is incredible. I think, like what you were saying, 90%. I think that's a really fair number. We'll get to the one or two people that I think we both kind of don't really like in this movie. But I really want to call out Craig Ferguson, who is in all three. I forget the name of the Viking he plays. It's the blacksmith. I think it's Gobber or something like that.
Gobber, yeah.
He is awesome, and he's an awesome central figure to have throughout all three. Also, Gerard Butler plays a very good father figure. Whether or not the design of his character is good is for another story. But anyone else you want to call out for being great members of the cast?
Yeah, I think Kristen Wiig or America Ferrera. Whoever the girl is.
The main girl, Astrid?
The main girl.
That's America Ferrera, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she did a really great job. That character really came to life a lot for me, just in the emotion of the speaking. And I think the main character, Jay, uh, I don't think it was the best, but I definitely think he was a good choice for the role. I think there were times where he definitely fell short in his voice acting, but I do feel like I identify Hiccup with Jay. I feel like that is who he is to me.
I kind of disagree. I think he's a total miscast. I
Heard.
just because, well, number one, I think a more fitting name for this movie should be An American Nerd in Scotland, which is just, 'cause I don't like the way he plays the character. You know, there's moments like when, you know, I think it's in like the second movie or third movie when like he and Astrid actually start developing their relationship, and he like she'll punch him and be like, "Ah, you're still doing that thing again." Oh, like no, like I get he's not a regular Viking, but that just doesn't. And again, it's a kids movie. I'm just reading way too much into it, maybe, but the voice just doesn't match what I think the main character of a Viking dragon movie should be.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't Game of Thrones. It's a kids movie.
Well, no, but but you have all the adult characters are Scottish. And actually, I was talking to someone who was like, "Oh, like, you know, because we were talking about the third movie later on when he grows up, when he and Astrid like, you know, grow up. Spoiler alert for the third one. Like he was like, did they get a Scottish accent when they grew up? Because all the adults have the accents, but none of the kids do. It's very weird. It's a weird decision to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we really got kind of that type of voice acting until we hit Brave, where I think everyone like really they leaned heavily on the accent accuracy.
True.
But yeah, I mean, I don't. To be honest, I didn't even notice that. I mean, we've talked about it, and I noticed it because it's obviously real. But while watching the movie, I had zero issues with him not having the accent. It was there, but it didn't really bug me.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, it was just one of the things I'm reading too much into, but it kind of it takes me out of the movie when there's something that sticks out like a sore thumb, like completely. Yeah, that's completely like a huge part of the movie. And I will say that later on, I think Jay Baruchel actually, you know, comes into his own a little bit more. There are moments in the second and third movie specifically where he actually sounds like, you know, he's putting a lot more effort in. He sounds like the leader he's trying to be. This movie, I think the first movie specifically, he just did not work in for me.
Fair enough.
But let's go ahead and move on to some positive things, at least for me. This movie's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like, any kind of gripes I have are, you know, lessened by the fact that this movie is a lot of fun. There is some good humor in it as well. There is also some emotional moments, even though the emotional moments, I would say, follow the conventional family film structure. You know, oh, the dad's stuck in his ways and won't turn around until, you know, he's shown the way. Like, it's that, you know, recycled plot over and over again. But it works here because it's just a different setting, it's a different world. And as someone who's a big proponent of worlds and world building and characters, I was riveted throughout the three by the world this was taking place in.
Yeah, I think the world building was phenomenal, and I also think that the relationship building that takes place between all the characters is really well paced. In terms of just like even his Hiccup's relationship with Toothless versus his friends and versus like the other dragon trainers or the dragon hunting trainees. Just like I feel like the relationships all got their own individual little bit of attention. And to me, by the end of the film, I felt like I definitely knew who all the characters were 100%. I don't feel like anybody got pushed to the wayside, and I wasn't like, why would they do that? Or I don't really get their motive, or like, I don't really get what's happening. I feel like they paced it extremely well.
This movie is, yeah, it is paced well. I will say, across most of these films, it feels well paced. It feels well executed in the editing department. And it flows really well, which is nice. I mean, even beyond the fact that it's a kids movie, you want movies to flow, or else.
Yeah, and I think it's entertaining enough for parents as well. Like I definitely remember, I think my dad took me to see this originally, and I remember him. I mean, for a grown-up person, but liking it. I remember like talking about it on the ride home, and just really enjoying it all the way around. So yeah, I think it's got something in there for everyone for sure. The animation is my probable, and it's not even a negative to be honest, because it's just a product of its time.
Yeah.
It's just that was probably the most jarring thing for me.
Yeah, and I will say one more other thing that I do enjoy about this movie before we move on to the next one is that there is no villain in this movie, really. Like, it's kind of more of a misunderstanding kind of thing, which is another, movie cliche that I don't like as much. But I like how there's no villain in this movie. It's Hiccup's father, who's just, unaware of the true way of things. So.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to talk about for the first How to Train Your Dragon before we move on?
No, I mean, I really liked it. I think it's a really fun film. I think even rewatching it is worth it. If you haven't seen, like, I hadn't seen it since it was in theaters. I didn't really remember the plot to any of these. I knew the key points and stuff, but it's definitely worth heading back to, just for a fun, like, Friday night, grab some drinks, hang out, just watch How to Train Your Dragon. I think it's a great film.
Yeah. I also think it's good. I liked it. I definitely don't think I liked it as much as another film coming up, but it was a good enough entry point. I don't know if it deserved a Best Animated Feature Oscar nomination, but
but at the time, it was pretty. Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like we keep looking at it with 2021
I'm not.
animation.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it through the animation lens. More so the actual like story and the characters and everything. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some scores. Adrian, what did you score How to Train Your Dragon #1?
I gave this movie an 87.
Wow. Okay.
I feel like this movie is a lot of fun. I've always had a thing for dragons. I just think they're super cool. I wish they were real. I want one. And this movie like brings out the little kid in me for sure, and wanting it to be so real that I would do, like, I want to be there. Just put me in that world. That's amazing. And I feel like they did a great job with all that. And realizing this fully fleshed out world that feels bigger than the movie that you're watching. It feels like there's a lot more going on. And that's not easy to capture. And they did a great job.
Yeah. If you love dragons, we should really check out Reign of Fire sometime. That would be an awesome movie. The movie about the dragon apocalypse with Christian Bale. Yeah. But as far as my score, again, I said I liked it. I think it's a good entry point. I don't think it's particularly strong enough to really warrant, like, a higher score. So I ended up giving it a 73. I did enjoy it. I did think it was fun, but a couple of my issues that kind of take me out of the experience for watching the movie just kind of took over for this one. But let's go ahead and reverse those thoughts with the second movie in the franchise, which is How to Train Your Dragon 2. Not very inventive of a name. Released in 2014, it was directed by Dean DeBlois and stars Jay Baruchel, Kate Blanchett, and Gerard Butler. When Hiccup and Toothless discover an ice cave, that is home to hundreds of new wild dragons and the mysterious dragon rider, the two friends find themselves at the center of a battle to protect the peace. It was nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Animated Feature, which is well-deserved for this one, because I think this movie's great.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is definitely stronger than the first one for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think this is the strongest one in the franchise. And I think that with the way the story goes, I actually thought this would have been a better third part, because this felt more climactic, especially like the final battle, which felt just way more epic in tone. This one also takes on a much more, not darker, but a more mature tone, which I really enjoy, and really exploring that concept of, like, not everyone can change. Which is, I think, something that not a lot of kids and family movies really go in depth on, which I really enjoyed. But what did you think about the second one?
Yeah, I do think this one, I really did enjoy the ending of this movie. I love the alphas. I think that was, like, just amazing to see a dragon that large. Cassidy and I were laughing when it first showed up, when they're, like, standing in front of it and it comes up and it's, like, the size of a mountain, and it's just absolutely gigantic. And yeah, the kind of the peak of this film, the big battle, I think was amazing. And one specific scene that I really liked, and it was like a core memory for me that I had forgotten, but when he first flies up and the dragon rider is circling around and standing on the dragon, just like pointing, that is a wicked cool scene.
Yeah.
I want to be that. I want to do that. That's so cool.
Well, your next character in D&D can be a dragon rider then. That would be awesome. But let's go ahead and dive into some other things about this movie, because I really want to talk about specifically the casting of this movie. Cate Blanchett is awesome as Hiccup's mother and the dragon rider. She brings also, like, her character also brings a great emotional point to this movie that I think really sells it. But also, Djimon Hounsou, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, who plays the villain, is also great. And you really feel his threatening nature, which lends a lot of credence to it being a better villain, and the character that doesn't, change their ways. But they're the two that really stood out, and I think them being added to the cast was awesome. I think also, speaking of Game of Thrones, Kit Harington is in this movie, the actor that played Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. I forget the character name. It's like Eret or something like that.
Eret, yeah, Eret.
Something like that. He's also in the cast. He's also good for what he's actually in it for. And the entire cast returns from the first movie. So it's actually a pretty decently large cast with a lot of big names in it. So, and I completely forgot Jonah Hill's in these movies. And
consistently.
And Christopher Mintz-Plasse and all them.
Yeah.
This also, again, this movie just feels more epic. It also, it really expands the world, too, which I really enjoyed. And bringing a lot more, nations and stuff in, because it's kind of unclear where the villain is from. He almost looks like he's like a Cro-Magnon or like a Neanderthal, almost.
Yeah. Or almost like a Hun. Something like that.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. But anything else you want to any standouts you want to mention for this one?
I think the scene specifically where Stoic finds out that his wife is still alive is absolutely just one of the craziest scenes. I mean, there's so much tension, and for him just to be happy that she's even here, she starts trying to form excuses and stuff, and he just is like, I'm just happy you're alive. And their whole little romance thing that they do is amazing, and of course all leading up to a horrific incident.
We can go full spoilers if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so when Stoic saves Hiccup and dies, which I didn't think. I mean, if there's a death count for any of these movies, it's kids' movies, so nobody dies really. They all even if they're thrown off a boat or something, you hear them splash in the water or go I'm okay. They literally make sure that the kids know that nobody's died. So to actually have a very powerful, meaningful on-screen death was pretty crazy and very, very emotional, and just kind of at the peak of that battle, it really nailed home kind of the villainy that was going on. And it was great. Yeah, I just think emotionally this movie was on point, and it delivered it excellently.
Also a full arc for Stoic.
Yeah.
Going from completely not trusting Hiccup, not, regarding him as anything more than a failure, to going to the point of sacrificing himself for him, that's huge for that character. And also, the moment you talked about when he actually sees his wife again for the first time, they completely avoid the trope of, the squabbling and the bickering, right? Where'd you go? Why didn't you come back? That is a male character that actually had depth to it.
Yeah.
And it was wow, okay, maybe they are taking this franchise a lot more seriously now that the kind of, kid-friendly nature is established. Yeah. They can go a little bit more close to home.
100%. And I think that, like I said, I love the moment that he didn't get mad or they didn't bicker. I love that to me, it showed who Stoic was, right? It's a side of his dad that Hiccup has never seen before. It's this, because he never got to experience them together. Mm-hmm. So seeing them do this whole dance and this ritualistic kind of wife-husband thing, or a song that they used to sing, you don't know, but neither does Hiccup, but you're just witnessing it for the first time. And I would completely agree that I think it showed a seriousness that the team was willing to make or to head in that direction. And yeah, I think it was great. But I do love the two alphas fighting each other. That was absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah, I think. While I don't agree with the design, I think they looked a little bit more like Leviathan type, not like a regular dragon. It kind of looked more almost like sea creaturey, or like like a land behemoth or something. It didn't really look dragony to me. It was still a really cool moment, and especially when the bad quote unquote one takes over, and you're like, oh, that's a broken power. How you can just hypnotize anyone? Like, okay, cool.
But also a great thing for the movie to let the villain win that, right? A lot of movies could have just said, oh, well, of course the good alpha is going to win. And this movie, very quickly, the good alpha does not win. It's not very long until we're like, uh-oh, what is going to happen here?
To be fair, we're not like around it very much. It's not like established as a main character or a main dragon. If anything, it's just like, oh, that big thing's here. Wow, it's big, and then it dies.
If anything, it's like becomes like a permanent backdrop to the battle. Like you just see it in the background as like the sky. It's that big.
I am the sky. But yeah, I think one of the things too is like this franchise has always been hyped up for me. A lot of people have talked very highly about this franchise.
Really?
And this is the movie where I was like, okay, I get it. And I think when most people talk about How to Train Your Dragon being really, really good, it's because of the second movie. Because I think it's a little bit more, mature. It's a little bit darker. It's a little bit more grounded.
Full arc. Yeah.
Full arcs are...
Full steam ahead on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's probably where most of that praise comes from. But anything else you want to discuss about the second movie? Because I feel like we have a lot of positive to say about this one. A couple of the gripes carry over. Obviously, Toothless design hasn't changed. And Jay Baruchel is better in this movie, I would say. He still has a couple of those moments where it just doesn't quite work.
Toothless does get some cool new abilities, though.
That was the other thing I forgot to mention. His breath ability, which is like the shooting the little ball out, is really stupid.
Oh.
Like if it was like purple lightning or like something like more consistent and looks like it actually deals more damage. Again, maybe that's just the D&D person in me where I'm like, that looks like a low-level boss that we would kill in the first couple of sessions. I don't know. I don't get the nature that he's an alpha or he's like, super powerful. I just don't get it from him. Like I get it's more so an emotional thing, right? Because he's similar to Toothless or to Hiccup, excuse me, where they're both, Hiccup's lost a leg, Toothless has lost his dorsal wing or tail wing, and so they have that connection and they build it. I get that and I understand that, but it just doesn't feel powerful at all.
I feel the complete opposite about Toothless. I thought it was wicked awesome. So
well, that thought changes with the third movie. But we'll get into that because he does get some cool abilities in the third one. Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up How to Train Your Dragon 2. Any final thoughts and a score? I guess I'll go first this time because we'll alternate it. I thought this one was more realized. It was more fun. It added a lot more to the world. The new cast additions are great, but a couple of my gripes carry over from the first movie still. But the animation does take a big leap forward, which is also nice. This one feels more relevant still than the first one feels. There were some
scenes that were beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Especially the cloud top sequence with the Dragon Rider like we talked about. And as the strongest of the three, I ended up giving this one an 84 out of 100. Nice. But for you, Adrian, some thoughts and a score.
My final thoughts are that I think this movie should have been named How to Train Your Dragon TOO, as in also. And I think that would have been a much better How to Train Your Dragon 2 than just the number. And because of that, I give this movie a 91. I think this movie is definitely better than the first one by a considerable amount. Definitely puts it into a different category. And I would agree that I think a lot of people, when they remember How to Train Your Dragon, think of scenes from this movie. This movie felt larger than it actually was. And that, like we talked about, it covered things that felt bigger than the movie itself. And because of that, I think people probably associate events of this as the entire trilogy. Because that's how large this movie felt and stuff that it dealt with. And I really feel like people will probably remember things from this happening in the other two films just by kind of misremembering and holding on to the feeling that this movie in particular gives you.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I forgot to mention too is that this movie has a pop song that is used twice in it, and it doesn't quite work for me. Forgot to mention that. Credits are fine, but once used during the movie, I was kind of like, eh.
The credit artist, actually, Jonesy, is a really good artist if anyone gets a chance to check him out. Really, really interesting.
Musical artist or the actual visual artist?
The musical artist, Jonesy.
Interesting. I'll have to check it out again. But we're going to go ahead and move on. Third movie in the franchise, which is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. Released in 2019, it was directed by Dean DeBlois and stars Jay Baruchel, America Ferrera, and F. Murray Abraham, who's returning after Grand Budapest Hotel. When Hiccup discovers Toothless isn't the only dragon of his kind, he must seek the Hidden World, a secret dragon utopia, before a hired tyrant named Grimmel finds it first. It was again nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Animated Feature. So as someone who had seen these movies before and rewatching it, what did you think of The Hidden World?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really remember it that much, and I think I'm one of those people that thought that, like, I expected Light Fury to show up in the second movie because they'd all kind of run together in my memory. So I didn't really remember. I remember like the big stuff in this movie, like the actual hidden world, but I didn't remember the villain or like that kind of whole plot point, or I guess plot arc or anything like that. So watching it again, I still think this movie's better than the first one, and that might be a controversial take. I'm not sure. But I just think that they did tie a nice bow on the trilogy for me with this movie. I feel like it really wrapped everything up together nicely, or as nicely as they wanted to, I guess, or as they could. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Gotcha. I think this movie sucks.
Okay.
After some reflection, I had to think about it after it because the thought that crossed my head after I watched the third one was, didn't I just watch this movie? This movie feels like the recycled version of the second one. It's the same exact plot point. There is a hidden area full of dragons that has to be protected because there's a villain on the loose. It's the same exact story as the second one, which can be fine if you expand upon it. Like A New Hope and Force Awakens are very similar, and we'll talk about that when we do our Star Wars franchise fever. But this, if you expand on it and make something new out of it, it didn't feel expanded on this one. What really bugged me is that
wasn't Grimmel not trying to? He wasn't trying to find the hidden world. They accidentally led him to the hidden world. He was trying to.
Yeah, but he is a dragon hunter, so he's gonna kill dragons no matter what. So it kind of felt similar.
Okay.
I don't know. The other biggest issue with this movie is that this is what I thought. In some parallel reality, this was the second movie. Because this one feels more corporate, it feels more studio-driven, as opposed to the second movie. The second movie felt more mature, epic in scale and tone. This one really succumbed to the worst of family movie tropes for me, which is where they go down like the awkward and cringy like romantic route. Like, oh, here's a romantic option for Toothless. Let's have a character give, weird romantic advice to our main character that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It just felt like not as sincere. It didn't have the same heart, at least through most of the movie. It just felt manufactured for the dollar signs. That's the best thing. It's like the best way I can describe it. I will say, sorry to go on a little bit of a rant. I think the villain is great. I do like Grimmel as a villain. He's the only villain I remember the name. And I think F. Murray Abraham plays him way differently than Djimon Hounsou played his character in the second one. And the visuals are also different. Like whereas I can't remember I think it's Drogo or something like that. Droll, whatever the second. Drago. He's big, he's imposing, he's just massive, right? Whereas Grimmel is smaller, slender, and skinny, but he's more ruthless and efficient. So there are the parallels in the two villains, which I do like that. Also, I think this movie looks very good, too. The animation is great on this movie. Particularly the water effects looked very good and stood out. But everything else just really And, some of the voice acting can't really save it for me either. It just really fell through on this one for me. The more I thought about it, it just felt recycled.
I definitely will agree that this movie had way less heart. I definitely didn't see, I guess, the manufactured portion that you saw. I can see how you saw it. Like, I can see that it's there, but I didn't get it while watching it. Definitely, yeah, just a lesser plot all the way around, I feel. But again, for someone that I just like dragons, so getting to see the hidden world and like this whole space and getting to see Toothless and Light Fury like being king and queen and stuff, that was all super fun for me. I feel like that was all really enjoyable to watch.
Sure. Yeah. It has its moments here and there, and I don't want to give the impression that it's all bad. It's not, but yeah, I don't know. It just, again, it felt manufactured. And my kind of weirdest complaint, like I was saying earlier, this would have been the second movie for me, where you have the character, because this movie, after the second movie feels much more epic,
Yeah,
than this one does. This one has a way less epic tone, especially the final battle. Feels like it goes by like that. But I feel like the second movie, if you had introduced the second movie as the third one with this epic finale, it would have been more like the Return of the King style as an epic conclusion, as opposed to just going out on a whimper.
yeah.
But
I completely agree. I do. I really did enjoy the ending though, where he like gets to go revisit Toothless after what seems like 20 years or something like that. And he has 2 kids, and Toothless and Light Fury have 3 baby dragons, and they all kind of get to ride again and stuff while keeping it a secret. And I do think I really liked the way it ended for kids, saying that there's a certain group of us that know that dragons are here, we're just keeping them secret. And I feel like for a kid's imagination, that is just such an excellent way to end the film, to have kids leaving the theaters going like, I now know that dragons are out there, like I know the secret, which is 100% what kids do. Like they're all like, they want to play dragon and do all that stuff. And I think it really nailed it for being a kids movie and sparking imaginations. I think that was really, really well done.
yeah, I think the ending was actually a highlight of this movie, but it would have been better after the events of the second movie, I feel. Like this final battle is someone who wants to control all the dragons. They then are free to do what they want, free of human intervention, and then they go back and visit him. I think that would have been a much better ending as opposed to, what we got.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think the music in this one wasn't as memorable as the first two.
No.
Definitely more. I don't know if it was the same composer as the second one, because I know the original composer for the first movie, I believe he passed away before the second and third one. I forget the name. He's the same guy who did the music for Avatar and Titanic.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember the name, but I could be wrong though. But yeah, I mean, like, it just didn't really stand out. This, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the manufactured nature of this movie. It just really kind of bugged me. I don't know.
Yeah, I really did like the relationship between Light Fury and Toothless, though. I think that it was great that they incorporated her distrust of humans in general because of the things that she'd seen, and kind of Hiccup having to work at it, like, hey, I'm friendly, like, come, like, it's fine, you can come close, and her not. I thought that whole dynamic was really interesting, and then I loved for Toothless being, quote, a teenager, as identified in earlier films that they're the same age, by Hiccup's mom. I feel like him trying to navigate the world of girls as well was probably pretty funny because, right, if you were a child when you watched the first one, by the time this one came out, you were probably in that same kind of phase. So again, making a movie for kids, I feel like it really was fun. I feel like it really embodied a lot of those things that people wanted to see, and the struggles and the awkwardness and all that. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've talked about this several times on the show. I'm just not a fan of like awkward things like that because it happens way too much in our personal lives. I don't like to see it again on the big screen. But like, I feel like there's better ways to handle those kind of relationship building moments. Like the original Lion King is a major kind of point in that direction for me, where that kind of felt like more of a natural relationship building between Simba and Nala.
I feel like they just had a song.
Well, there was that, but then also moments they had before. They were talking. They actually had like legit. Granted, they were talking and could have more intelligent conversation, but it felt more like, okay, this is actual relationship building. Where this one kind of felt a little forced. Like, oh, here's a female one. Like, maybe you should go. I don't know.
Well, I think they talked about it that Night Furies, once the first female they meet, they mate for life, or they latch on for life.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
It just didn't work for me. That's all
enough.
I can say.
But that's pretty much, I mean, those are my final thoughts. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's better than the first one. Definitely not as good as the second one, but I think the world as a trilogy is very entertaining and very vibrant, and there's a lot to it, and I think they're all worth watching.
Sure. I would say watch the first two. I feel like the second one has a better ending than this one does. I mean, well, sure. The actual like epic battles and such. The end of this movie is good, but
you should open Premiere and just edit your own edit your own ending to the second one.
Edit my own version of the entire second film. Release the deploy cut.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but what did you give it as a score?
I give this movie an 88. It's just one hair above the first one, just visual-wise. I think some of the scenes and some of the dragon powers in this movie were really cool. And I was a big fan of kind of the awkward teenager relationship all the ways around, right? I mean, the human relationships that were developing awkwardly, as well as the dragon relationships, which, to be honest, I mean, for not being able to speak, I feel like they translated emotions between those dragons extremely well. I feel like I was following along every step of the way, so I think that was extremely, extremely good.
Fair enough. I feel like I've made my thoughts pretty clear throughout this video. Due to the manufactured nature of it, just didn't feel like it was made with the same artistic integrity that the first two were. And, I mean, while you do get a cool new villain, and the performances all stay good, and the especially the visuals get a major bump here. It's not enough to save it for me, and probably the biggest score differential we've had in quite a while. I ended up giving it a 39. I just really did not enjoy my time on this one. I mean, well, I can't say I didn't enjoy it. There was enjoyment to be had. It just came at the expense of watching something that felt manufactured. But
sure.
Maybe that was after, like, because I know DreamWorks went through a big shakeup after a while, and this was like their big movie they were trying to come back with after the studio wasn't doing so well for a while.
That magic.
Maybe it was a new management team. Maybe it was a new creative team. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's going to bring us to an end of this franchise fever. I think we both agree that the second one is the best one in the series. So
yes,
you have our answer there. But Adrian, if our guests are looking to if our guests in the car ride are looking to follow us online, where can they do so?
You can find us at the Drive Back Podcast, pretty much anywhere online. If you can see us, you're here on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to get notified. We post every Monday, as well as unscheduled posts that are more exclusive content. And those are things just like if a movie's coming out, doesn't need a whole review or a full episode, we'll just give it a quick little review at a midnight premiere or something like that, so you know whether to go watch it or not. If you're just listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, whatever your podcasting app is, go ahead and subscribe. Again, we post every Monday. And if you want to keep up with us and talk to us, Instagram is the best place to get in touch with us. We're at the Drive Back Podcast, and we also post whenever we're going to post on there. So if you see a post come up, know that you can look at that, and you'll know exactly what episode has come out that day and whether you should watch it or not.
That's absolutely right. And if you're interested at all in seeing what I think of current release movies, I'll put it right down here, is my film blog where I review new releases. That is GarrettO'KeefeFilm.blogspot.com. I think both of us are going to be seeing Shang-Chi hopefully this weekend, as of the time of recording this. So if we do record a video review for that, it should be up on the channel pretty quickly afterward. But if not, you can always find at least my review online. I don't know if Adrian, if you've been posting anything anywhere.
No, not as of yet.
But you should. I'd love to see what you have to think when you're on your own. But next week, though, we have another show and tell coming up. And after receiving some feedback from last week, it's pretty clear that the idea of letting you know what we're doing next is a good idea. So you can choose to watch it or not. So next week we have a show and tell. Adrian is making me watch... Which movie was that?
I don't remember what I was supposed
good
to
thing
do.
I have the schedule pulled up right
good
here.
thing,
So Adrian is having me watch Parasite because I still haven't seen Parasite, and I feel I feel like I've sacrificed my integrity as a film watcher and as an Oscars buff by not watching that movie. And kind of on the train after last week of The Witch with Robert Eggers films, I am having Adrian watch The Lighthouse.
Yeah, also a surprising one that I haven't seen. I've just heard nothing but amazing things about it, so I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely. So 2 heavy hitters next week. So we'll see. Sounds like we'll have 2 high rankings unless Adrian doesn't like The Lighthouse, but we'll find out.
I have no idea what The Lighthouse is about, so I have no preconceived notions going in.
But if you're interested in watching along with us, Parasite is available to stream on Hulu, especially since I think Hulu is getting a Parasite TV show, like an American version of it. And then The Lighthouse is available to stream with Amazon Prime. So both of those are available to stream if you have the services. But other than that, we are all done for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, wherever you're doing it. And we will see you next time on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.